This year has been, well, terrible. We all know it. There's been some shining moments, but largely it sucked. The very fact that I'm sitting here being able to make this video today is amazing to me. We fought wildfires, killer bees, and we're still fighting a pandemic. And with all the chaos that's been going on in our world, it makes me think that escapism is once again becoming just a little more important. So now's that time of the year. The time where we look back at all of the games, movies, and TV shows that came out in the last year and make arbitrary lists saying which ones were better than the others. But it doesn't matter. Video games are designed to bring everyone joy, regardless of who they are, or what they're going through. Looking back on the year, what categorizes 2020 in gaming for me is that. Not the delays, the filth and hatred on social media, the delays, whatever the hell's happening with Cyberpunk, but hope. The hope that gaming gave me this year. Now, before I actually share my list, here are my criteria so you understand where I'm coming from and no one tries to flay me alive. First, personal impact. This is kind of a big one this year. How much did the game make me feel, both in terms of gameplay and story while I'm playing it? How much did I think about the game outside of just playing it? Second is how fun it was. It's really simple. What was the game fun? Why was it fun? Did I enjoy my time with it? Finally, quality. The games on the list have to be good working games. Duh. Everything about the games works and works well together. Alright, we're done with that. Now for the reason you're actually watching this video, let's talk about the actual top 10. Number 10, Half Past Fate from Serenity Forge. Every year there's a game on my list that is there in part because of how it inspired me. Half Past Fate is this year's addition to that trend. It's a very personal story about personal relationships, and if that isn't more important this year than ever, I don't know what is. But more importantly to me, it inspired me to keep working, to keep building on my own projects, all from a simple scene in the bar. I'm not going to spoil it, you should go play it. Half Past Fate could have very easily been a cute game that I forgot about, but alas, the game has stuck with me since I played it, earning its number 10 spot. Number 9, Immortals Fenyx Rising from Ubisoft Quebec. Immortals Fenyx Rising is by no means a perfect game. I mean, it already lost a perfect name with Of Gods and Monsters. It can be over the top, its comedy is hit or miss, and it's clearly inspired by The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That said, Immortals' world is amazing, and I thoroughly enjoyed every second of the story, to the point that I'm currently working on the Platinum Trophy. Where the game shines the most is that it embraces how much of a game it truly is. It accepts its cartoony nature, and embraces it, delivering a great experience around that. Number 8, The Last of Us Part 2 from Naughty Dog. The Last of Us Part 2 was a beautiful game with lots of ups and downs. It was an interesting, thought-provoking, heart-crushing story, and what they were able to do with Abby absolutely deserves some of the awards it has won. Where its more open-ended design wasn't always spectacular, the design of its story-focused levels was amazing. This was absolutely a story that couldn't be told in another medium. That said, this game was riddled with controversy, from crunch to how certain cast and crew members conducted themselves throughout the launch. It was disappointing for a game I really did love. It really soured the experience for me. But to make it clear, I did love The Last of Us Part 2. From the moments between Ellie and Dina to making my way through the Seraphite village with Lev and Abby, to that final fight where I genuinely didn't want to fight. The game was extremely impressive and truly incredible. Number 7, Spiritfarer from Thunder Lotus. Thoughtful, fun indie games are some of my favorite games of all time, and you can see a few of them on this list. A lot of good ones came out this year that all deserve recognition, but Spiritfarer is certainly one of the best. Growing to love these characters just to say goodbye is beautiful and heartbreakingly human. Loss is never going to be easy to deal with, and it certainly is never going to be fun. But this game manages to build an extremely fun game around it. I could talk about this game for a very long time, but truth be told, I would just be spoiling the experience. Spiritfarer is one you need to experience for yourself, not from me putting it in my top 10 list. Number 6. Arcade Spirits from Fiction Factory Games. A world like ours, literally the only difference is that arcades are popular. Man, remember being able to go to an arcade? I miss that. A lot. Either way, this is a game about dreams, and this year that was perfect. Selfishly, this has been a year for me where I'm recklessly following those dreams, and that is in a large part because of this game. Playing it, meeting Naomi, Ashley, Percy, okay, mostly Naomi. It all reminded me why I chase my dreams and why most people do. I can tell you all the reasons why this visual novel is great, but to me, those are minuscule compared to the hours I spent awake at night, soul-searching on my own dreams, purely from playing this game. Number 5. Marvel's Avengers from Crystal Dynamics. Marvel's Avengers is a game that post-story is kinda bland. It's definitely very samey, but it was perfect for me. The joy of this game was running around as some of my favorite characters in pop culture. Running around doing it with my friends makes it even better. Not to mention the story was great. Finally getting to see a proper Miss Marvel story outside of the comic books was amazing to me, and Sandra Saad gave one of my favorite performances of this year. She was the reason I love this game. The opening scenes where we see her fangirl over the different Avengers had me in tears, wanting nothing but the best for her. And more so with the add-on content of Kate Bishop and the promise of more for free. This game is one I'm going to be playing for as long as I can. By the way, if you're playing Avengers, hit me up. I want to play with more people. Number 4. Hades from Supergiant Games. There's nothing I can say about Hades that hasn't already been said. The game is just so smooth and feels so good that it's ridiculous. And then the art style, the music, the writing, getting added on top of an already amazing dish, and I'm overloaded with amazing food. Okay, I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor. But here's what's most impressive to me about Hades. I am really bad at Hades. I have completed one run, and I need a god mode to do it. But I still loved every second of every run. It's become my go-to game when I'm just hanging out watching TV with friends or family. And yes, I get in trouble every time I yell at the Switch after I die. Number 3. Persona 5 Royal from Atlas. I did not beat the original Persona 5. Okay, I admit it, revoke my gamer card, whatever, I don't care. The Akuma boss fight drove me away. I hated it so much. So when Persona 5 rolled around, I knew it was my shot to finally beat the game. Over 100 hours later, and after doing the Akuma boss fight twice because I forgot to save, this game is easily one of my favorite JRPGs ever. I love the characters as you do when you're attached to them for so long. I felt the relatability in them, especially Futaba for me. On the more gameplay side of things, each of the dungeons is unique, and I loved exploring them, looking for the different will seeds. I even enjoyed grinding in mementos and taking time to go do the DLC boss fights. Where the game shines in typical Persona fashion, though, is the social links, the interpersonal connections with characters. That said, this game isn't perfect. It still doesn't handle LGBTQ+ characters particularly well. And as a story, the pacing does occasionally feel off. It's still great though. The new semester especially is amazing and adds a whole extra layer to the story that works so well both in fitting into the original game as well as spotlighting the new characters. This is a game that I recommend to anyone regardless of the hours. It's worth it to put the time in because it is an amazing story. Number 2. Coffee Talk from Toge Productions. If you see me in any content, you've probably heard me talk about coffee. I'm somewhat obsessed. Well, a visual novel based around running a coffee shop in Seattle is right up my speed. But it's also a world where we live with elves, werewolves, and other various creatures. But despite that, we're still stuck with the same social problems? How is that not cool? As mentioned with Persona 5 Royal, I love games about interpersonal relationships. It's why I fall for games like this, or Valhalla. This game, though, gets especially meta with it, playing with your powers as the player. It's wonderful. But that's not the only thing this game does well. Its art style and music choices perfectly exude coffee shop energy, really making me wish I was able to write this in my own local shop right now. It really gives me an appreciation for the little things like that. Stuff I definitely used to take for granted. One more place this game shined was in the actual coffee mechanic of the game. It exists twofold. The actual selecting of ingredients, which I loved enough to build something similar into my own game, as well as a totally optional latte art mode that I am really bad at. These modes are very thought out and extremely fun, whether I'm trying to draw a leaf on a mocha or testing out flavor combinations to find all of the possible drinks. I am always having a good time. Alright, it's time for number 1, and honestly it's not that much of a surprise. But before we get there, I do want to give an honorable mention shout out to some games that I really wanted to put on this top 10 list. But since the list is only 10, I had to cut it down. So here's a quick honorable mention to a few games. Alright, detour's over. Let's do this thing. It is time. My game of the year for 2020 is Final Fantasy VII Remake from Square Enix. Final Fantasy is one of my favorite franchises ever, and more so, the world of Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorites. So when they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake, I was excited but cautious. On one hand, I was worried about them splitting it up into multiple parts, and on the other, I was worried they were going to stick too closely to the original game. But regardless, I was still excited to really get to see Midgar fleshed out. And here's what I realized. Final Fantasy VII Remake is totally different. And more so, it plays those differences into the story itself in such an interesting way that it's some of the most Final Fantasy weird storytelling that I've ever seen. I already love these characters, but I grew even closer to them, especially Barrett and Aerith. And close to characters that didn't get much time in the original, like Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge. I mean, the entire internet loves Jessie, so I'm not new there. I still love her though. From a gameplay side, I initially thought the game was very button mashy up until the last few chapters. And then I started streaming hard mode, where I am really seeing the combat system shine. No way should a combat system as complicated as this, relying on so many pools of information as this, work as well as it does. ATB was a great choice for this game, and really fun both when button mashing and when thinking out moves. Additionally, playing as Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, and Aerith all feel fun and unique. No one feels like the others. I honestly consider this game to be a masterpiece, and one that's opened up a ton of new storytelling where I didn't think possible in a world that I am absolutely in love with. Like a lot of games on this list, I can't wait to see what's next. But unlike the other games on this list, I'm more invested in Final Fantasy VII Remake's world, story, whatever is going to happen, than anything else. So that's it. We've done it. We've made it through another game of the year. What's yours? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, have a happy holidays, and I will see y'all in the next video.